In this episode, I get to speak with Robert Ingalls, a once lawyer gone rogue. When he realized that he was at a crossroad, this new road led him to podcasting and assisting other law firms to reach their marketing goals. Listen in for more. Robert and I really kept the conversation going. Enjoy part 2 of this episode. Before we get into this episode, we would like to thank our Season 4 sponsor, Affirm Investigative Solutions, your go-to litigation support company. Without them, we would not be able to keep upgrading and integrating new concepts to this growing podcast. If you would like to take your support further, feel free to hit the support button on our Let's Talk Paralegal website so we can continue providing quality and empowering content for you and all our listeners. A lot of people need to know that you're right. There's no overnight success. My dad always used to say that. I grew up with, my father was more of the dreamer, right? He was more of like, I'm going to be in the clouds. Everything's going to be beautiful and, whatever. And my mom was more of the realist. Like, no, we got to pay bills.
Right.
I'm going to work my 9 to 5. I'm going to do my thing. And so I grew up with those two worlds, right? So I'm a perfect mesh. And sometimes that stresses me out and I become a mess.
I have both.
It's right. It's like, it's very stressful. Like you have, and we were talking about this in the pre-recording about E-Myth, and how he talks about the 3, I know it's one of my favorites. And how he talks about the 3 personalities of an entrepreneur. So check that book out because it really is amazing. And so understanding as an entrepreneur, right? Understanding that it's going to take a little bit and it's going to, however long it takes, right? That's why a lot of businesses fail because a lot of people are not persistent, and are like, forget this. I'm in this couple years and nothing's happening. I'm out. And so unfortunately, that's how it goes. But for anybody that's probably in that position right now, that they're doing their podcast or they're trying to launch it or, they're trying to do something more with their business because we have a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the legal realm, listening. What advice or practical tips or maybe just some motivation at this point, what can you offer for them, while they are driving in this car a year later?
Yeah, we hit on one that really it is. I think it all comes down to persistence. Is the people there's a quote that I keep right there, and it's been there for years. And I first discovered it in Phil Knight's book, Shoe Dog. And he got it from somewhere else. And it keeps me going. And the cowards never started, and the weak died along the way.
Wow.
It's persistence. That's what he's saying is, first you have to start it. And I think that goes back to Nike's slogan. We've heard
Just
it.
Do it.
But that's the thing. It's one of those things we've heard our whole life. And when I was in 7th grade, I had this shirt that said, just do it on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing that. It never really meant anything to me. And then when I got into personal development and into entrepreneurship and shifted my mindset, it meant everything to me because it's beautiful and powerful in its simplicity. That is what you have to do. Stop thinking about it. Stop worrying about it. Stop planning for it and do it. Yeah. Don't try to take the perfect picture. Take 1,000 pictures because every picture you take teaches you how to take a picture, gives you feedback on what a bad picture looks like, teaches you a little bit about how you like to take pictures. Yeah. And then 1,000 pictures later, you have figured out a lot of things than if you sat around and planned and learned all the lighting and figured all of it out just to take that one picture. Do it. Do it, do it, do it, do it. And stay persistent with it. And you said something very early on. You said the word pivot. Always be ready to pivot because things get hard. That's one guarantee that I can make, that the universe will make, is going to be hard. You know why? Because we're people who do hard things. And if it was easy, everybody else would do it.
That's true.
That's why we succeed, because we are people that do hard things. When it gets hard, we go, all right, challenge accepted. Yeah. And you have to cultivate that mindset, because I know somebody's going to say, well, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at stepping up when things get hard. I'm not that kind of person. I have failed myself over and over and over. I have told myself so many times, I'm going to do this, and I didn't do it. Yeah, me too. For 35 years, I feel like. And it doesn't matter who you are today. The idea of just be yourself is perhaps one of the worst ideas I've ever heard. I think it's well intentioned. I think it is. But most of the time, we tell people to just be themselves when they're having trouble, when they're struggling, when they're out of their depth. Like, no, no, relax, just be yourself. No, myself is what got me here. So don't be yourself. Figure out who you need to be to get the thing you want. Engage in the habits of the person you need to be.
Yeah. Seek
And
out
then,
mentorship too, right? Like
yeah,
I always, because I didn't know that, right? I didn't, and not to cut you off, but
no,
in
please.
personal development, I reached out to who now is my business consultant, Tracy Litt. Shout out to Lit Factor. And I met her at a Women Empowerment Expo. It was like the most random, well, not random. I don't believe in randomness. I don't believe, I do believe in synchronicities, but I was lost. I had just launched my business and I believe at that point, I'm not quite sure. I would have to look at the dates and stuff, but I believe I was getting like got pregnant with my son during that time as well. So my hormones were like preparing themselves for the months to come, but I didn't know it at the time. So anyways, I'm there. I mean, I'm really in dismay. This was a really tough time for my business, and I had just launched in, even though I had great clients and I was paying the bills, I thankfully I never had that issue in the first couple of years like most entrepreneurs do. But I was ready to pivot, I was ready to do something else because I was doing the same thing I was doing from 9 to 5. I just transferred it to me on my own. And so I was like, something's really not working here. And okay, this is great. I'm paying the bills, but like, what else can I do with my skills? Like, I want to transfer these skills and do something else with it, right? And so I met Tracy, and she was one of the speakers on the panel. And there was I want to say it was a huge panel. There was like 7 of them. But out of all of them, she's the one that stood out for me. She was cursing. She was just being her, on
Sure.
this panel. Here she is making 7, 8 figures a year, right? And she's just honest. She's like, it's not overnight and this and everything I just said. But something that she said, and I won't say it because there's a bad word in it, but she just says, don't give up. And I'm gonna just let you imagine what word that is. And I was like, interesting. And I was like, okay, but kind of like you, I was like, okay, I've heard that before. Don't give up, stay persistent, da da da. And then all of a sudden she goes and she looks at me because I think she kind of felt my energy, right? And then she goes, and mean it and believe it, like, because it's one thing to tell yourself, okay, I'm not going to give up. Everything's going to be great. Da 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 da. And then just keep continuing going. But then it's another thing to actually believe it. No, I am good. I'm good enough. Yes, I am. Of course I am. I know I can do this. And you have to like convince yourself in a way where it becomes a reality, right? Because they always say that negative thoughts lead to negative outcomes, positive thoughts lead
Sure.
to positive outcomes. And that's just the way of the world. If you think you're going to get into a car accident, eventually you will. If you think, something bad's going to happen, eventually something bad happens to prove you, right? It's called conscious bias, a confirming bias. It's going to confirm your thoughts. So I learned all that on that day of the panel. I went down and she's like, I'm having a retreat and I want you to come. And she gave me a discount and everything. And she's like, I think you would benefit from it. And at first I thought it was just like an entrepreneur retreat where you go and they give you business plans and they set you up for like success, right? And they give you the whole incubator and they do the whole like pitch thing and all the escalator and elevator pitches and escalations. And I'm thinking, great, this is exactly what I need. I need a plan. I need what you were saying, right? I need everything. And so I get there. It's a 3, 4 day retreat. And I come in ready to go. I'm all ready. I'm suited up. And I see people in like pajamas. I see people in like loose clothing. And I'm literally in a suit. And I'm like, okay, this is not what I was expecting at all. And all of a sudden I get there and she touched on mindset first. She's like, before we get into anything, we need to focus on your mindset and we need to make sure that what you're thinking, what you're doing is actually what you want to do, right? And ever since that moment, I said, always surround yourself. They say the law of attraction, right? You surround yourself with the 5 people around you most is really what's going to make you succeed. And I took that really to heart. And ever since I was very stern and setting my boundaries and changing my mindset and saying, I'm gonna not only be persistent and not give up, I'm actually gonna believe that I'm actually gonna do this. Like this is happening, you know? So I think it has to be a combination of yes, not be yourself, right? Because you're gonna have to change yourself in order to continue.
Right.
That's for sure. Like I said, I'm not the same person I was even 3 years ago. We don't even have to go as far as 10 years ago, but understand that life circumstances are going to happen, right? You got to plan for the worst always, doesn't matter. There's always going to be a dip down and a dip up and or whatever. And so to your point though, but that does take tenacity, it does. Like there's no way, well, who was it? Was it Muhammad Ali with that famous quote that says, you can knock me out, 100 times or 99 times, but if I, get up 100, I win or something like that.
Right.
I know I probably butchered it.
Well, and then you
But
jump on that one with Mike Tyson's quote after that, that I think plays well with it, that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
yes, I love
Plan will
it.
change.
Yes, and I love
Yeah.
that. And, as a planner, as a perfectionist type A, typical legal professional personality, 8 on the Enneagram, you name it. Everything that you think I am, I am. And so, it took me a while to undo the damage
Oh,
that I was
yeah.
doing to myself, that society did to me, and that my parents, lovingly, I can't say they
Hey,
did it
they
on
do their best.
purpose.
We're
They
doing
do
our
their
best
best
with
with
our
what
kids.
they
I'm sure we're
have,
leaving our
right? And I'm
fingerprints
sure
on
my
them
kids are
too.
gonna have their, I'm
Yeah,
sure they're gonna have their feedback later on
I'm
too. So,
sure.
but you got to plan for it. You have to make sure that you're staying in line with really what you want. Some people don't even
Right.
know what that is. Some people are just
Sure.
like, I just want to make my own money and do my own time, or
Yeah.
take control of my time. And I'm like, well, what does that look like? Like, what does
Well, I
that
know,
mean?
but I do think that that's okay because
Yeah.
I don't, when I started on this journey, I didn't know what I really wanted to do either. I didn't know it was going to be this. And that was part of a mindset. Who am I? But it's also just do something. Do that thing, go to that retreat,
Mm-hmm.
meet that person, pursue your interest, be curious.
Mm-hmm.
Do things that make you want to do them, where when you take a breath, you can like feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, what's this? I like this. Things
Yeah.
that scratch your itch, just pursue your interest.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where the magic happens, where you find something, you're like, oh, I like that. And you're like, oh, but I don't know how I'd make money that. Don't worry about that yet. Make it a
Mm-hmm.
hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Just pursue your interest, take care of your financial responsibilities. But if we're being honest here, most people's financial responsibilities aren't as high as they're making them. We know that. We
Mm-hmm.
know that we are pushing ourselves. And Alex Hormozy, I think, is great at this idea. If you're looking for somebody to cut your bullshit, and I hope I'm not
No, that's fine.
cursing
Go
where I
ahead.
shouldn't be, but it's this idea that, oh, I've got to have my lease on this car because I got to have this, I got to have. No, you don't need any of that. You
Mm-mm.
don't need any of that. Cut it down. Cut your grocery bill down. Cut your apartment down for 2 years
Mm-hmm.
and focus. Save your money, focus, and pursue your interest.
Yeah.
And a lot of magic's going to happen because you're going to get those golden handcuffs on and you're going to be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, we are, we're in our, you're the problem. At the end of the day, if you're having trouble, you're the problem because you're the only person that can fix it. Extreme ownership.
But you're also
Jocko,
the solution. Shout out
right.
again to Tracy. Her
Absolutely.
book is literally called that. You're the problem and the
I
solution.
love that.
But it's true. You have both, right? You cause your issues. You cause your, I think, and I'm not gonna be like, whatever Americans think X, Y, and Z because I am American,
Oh, we're
obviously,
all
born
different,
and bred, right? But we have a spending issue.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We think we're entitled to everything. And thanks to companies like Amazon, nothing against them. I love Amazon. I live off of Amazon. But thanks to companies like Amazon that created instant gratification, thanks to COVID with DoorDash and Uber Eats and everything that we want, we can get it literally within less than 24 hours at our door. That has fed the monster, right? And so we treat everything in life as such. Well, if I don't get it right away, then I'm not doing it right. It wasn't meant for me. It's just not mine. Well,
Right.
no, like some things really do take time. Like a baby's not going to be born in a day, right? It takes 9 months, well, hopefully with no complications.
Sure.
It takes 9 months, whatever, to make sure it's a healthy baby. And if it doesn't, then they'll figure it out. But like everything in life is not instant, right? I
Most
always
of the good
say,
things aren't.
yeah, well, this is what I'm saying. And then I always, I hated the invention of instant message. That was my like, because I'm like, just call it a message. Don't call it because you're not going to get an instant response. Like that's just not happening in my world.
Right. Turn your
Um,
notifications off. That's what I tell
Off.
people. Turn them off.
Yes. My phone is always on Do Not Disturb. Another book that I love is by Sam Millay, and he was actually on this podcast. It's called The Virtual Law Firm. And it has nothing to do for law firms. Like it really doesn't. Like you can take all these concepts in that book and really implement it in both your personal and professional life, regardless of what you're doing. And I love it. He has amazing resources at the end of the book where you can go on there and look at the products that he promotes that he himself uses in his companies because he has several of them. So, but one thing that he says in that book is your time is your time. You're giving away your time when your phone and notifications are on all the time. When anybody can access you at any time, you're giving it away. And I was like, that is so true. It's something I discovered over 3 years ago. I always have my phone on Do Not Disturb. And if you're on my favorites, then it comes through. Like that's my husband, my mother, there's certain people obviously I'm not going to just ignore. But like during this podcast, what was the first thing I said? Let me take everything off. I'm going to take off all the notifications. I'm going to do everything. And that's exactly what I did because this time now is dedicated to this conversation.
Right.
And that transpires everywhere. That transpires in your professional life, mostly in your personal, with your spouse or your children or your significant others or your brothers or your sisters or whomever, your friendships, you know, giving them that time. My biggest pet peeve is that I'm talking to you and you're on your phone. You're looking down on your
Yeah.
phone. I'm like, I'm trying to have a conversation with you. If you don't want to be here, just let me know. You know what I mean? Like it just for me, it's like I get it. It's an emergency or something like that. But at least they excuse me. Give me one. Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. Give me 1 second. Let me just attend to this and I'll be right back. Or whatever the case may be. But just we're so addicted to our devices. And that's also, a conversation for another day. But back to what we were talking about, persistence. My last tidbit, I guess I would say, because we're running at the tail end of our time here. But my last thing is for podcasters alike, right? This is more specific for people that are already in podcasting. And because I have a lot of people that are always reaching out to me about podcasting, and it's just not something that I'm really into, but like to teach people.
Yeah.
That's your job. I'll give them to you. But for people that are interested in this endeavor, really, I mean, I know how it's tough. I know that it's like having a business. So like for your clients in particular, how do you tell them, hey, this is like another business. Like you're running a business, but this is a full on, side biz as well, a hobby or whatever you want to call it. But this is also something else. Like how do you sell that to them? You know what I mean? Like how do you give them that full picture? Because it's not just turn on a mic and record like a lot of people think it is.
Sure. It's I'll say a lot of times the conversation I can figure out really quickly where they are.
Mm,
And because some people get it and some people are still trying to get it. And I understand that because I've been both of them. And when people show up and they're in the DIY mindset, I try to, they're probably not going to end up working with me at that point because there's a very big bridge to gap from there. But I do tell them, hey, I wouldn't recommend doing this yourself because you run a law firm and I've done it. I've run a law firm and run a podcast.
mm,
And I'll usually ask them, what do you bill per hour? 250, 400. What do you think you could pay somebody to do that for you? If it's less than 250, 400, then you really should be paying them. And it's probably significantly less. And the real upside is the product's going to be better
mhm.
because if you sit down, you got to figure out what microphone to buy. Then you got to figure out how it works. Then you got to figure out where to even record yourself. Then you got to figure out how to make it not sound so bad because there was a fan running. And then you have to figure out, well, I said 79 times. That I really don't like how that sounds. What do I do about it? And then you have to figure out, oh, it'd sound really cool if there was like maybe some like music at the beginning because it sounds kind of like not great when it just starts. How do I find music? Where would I even get that? Do I have to pay for it? Can I use We Will Rock You as my intro? We haven't even gotten it onto a podcast platform yet.
Mm.
That is not, I mean, if you love it and chase your dreams and go be a competitor of mine. Seriously, chase your dreams. There's enough pie for us out there. Let's do it. But I don't think you should try to practice law and do this because somebody else can do it a lot better than you. And they're going to help you realize your dream and find your voice and speak to your clients in a much better way than you're going to be able to do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that get it, they understand that this is a marketing tool. Like it really is. It's just another marketing tool to speak directly to prospects or referral sources. And they understand that marketing is just a partner at the firm. It's almost as simple as that. What are we doing to market? How are we doing it to market? And then marketing gets paid. You don't not pay one of your partners. You always pay your partners. I've had some lawyers even tell me the marketing partner gets paid even when the partners don't get paid sometimes. Like there's that's always going to happen because if the partners are having trouble getting paid, marketing really needs to get paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then that's going to come up again. But it's one of the nice things about podcasting when you have somebody helping you with it is you show up, you sit down, you have the conversation, and then hopefully you never think about it again. And it just goes and it becomes all the things. It becomes the podcast on the internet, on your website with show notes and a transcript and a full length video on YouTube that you then, that then your team clips up and turns it into vertical reels with captions and branding and just an infinite amount of evergreen content from 30 minutes of attorney time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I love how you painted that picture, right? And you outlined it because it's so important. You know, it's very similar to like what I offer with the consulting, right? And it's like, oh yeah, what do I need a consultant for? I know how to run a business. I'm like, well, how's your turn, you know, your turnaround? How's your turnover? How are your, you know, like, can I talk to your staff about that? Because halfway through here, I saw sad faces. So, you know, understanding that. Sure, yeah, okay. Just because the numbers in the banks are okay, they could be one, a lot better. And two, you don't have to be hiring and firing people constantly, right? Those are like my two things. Like if you're hiring and firing people constantly, that's a red flag right there. So
Right. Well, you're not
understanding
hiring
that,
well, and you're probably not, your culture is probably not great.
right.
I've read some amazing books on that specific problem that have changed the face of my business. Buy Back Your Time was one
Oh,
where, I
yes.
mean, it's the basic idea of stop doing everything yourself. Oh, but I can do it better. Well, of course
Mm.
you can do it better. Bring them in, teach them how to do it, create systems and processes they can follow. And then 80% of what you can do is amazing.
Yes,
If you can hire people that can do 80% of the way and you can hire that all around, now you've bought back your own time to actually work on the business, not in the business. And
correct.
then Who, I think, is the name of the other one. It
I
teaches
love
you how to hire. It talks about voodoo hiring, which is what most of us do. We just kind of talk to people, kind of get a feel for them and go, sure. And instead, this book is like, no. Many long interviews where we ask lots of crazy questions because people have a hard time hiding in that kind of setting. And then you find, okay, this person really does get it. Or you see red flags that you wouldn't have seen the other way. So
Right.
yeah, getting the right team is
Yeah.
one of the most important things about building a business.
Yeah, and everything has a process. Like, I don't think people understand that. You know, I'm like, everything has a process. From the time that your client enters your law firm, whether it's virtual or physical, to the time that you finish through with their services, everything has a process. Your intake process, litigation, your trial prep, all of this has a process. And the problem with that is it's not just creating it, it's actually the implementation because you
Yeah.
can have everything in writing, everything look pretty, and everything up to your standards. But if the, you know, personnel that you're putting into these, you know, little buckets are not actually implementing the
Right.
process the way you want it to, well, then it's never going to work. And then if you don't provide them with the correct tools, how about if they need the software and the computer is not working? Well, you need to know that. How about if there's something wrong with the template? How about if
Right.
your phone systems are down? Like there's so many, infamous or, like unlimited, possibilities of things
Yeah.
going wrong again, right? Like the theme of the day
And
today.
you need a process for what happens when those processes break.
Exactly.
Like it's a never-ending
Yeah,
spiral, but it's beautiful when it starts to come together. Yeah, and it's going to,
absolutely.
for most people, it never ends. It's
Yeah.
constantly iterating, but
Mhm.
also be okay with that process taking years.
Oh yeah.
Because people will say, "Oh, we're going to spend this month working on processes."
Mm-mm.
If you figure out how to do that, you tell me because you're going to
Yes.
be a zillionaire. Because
Yes.
we've been
I
working
will
on
invest.
processes for years
Yes.
and they're still a very big part of what we do because
Yeah.
they're so important. You don't have a business. If you, like one of the things that I've learned is if you can't leave for a few months basically without things breaking, you don't have a business, you have a job.
Job.
And that's fine. It's fine to have a job. But if you want a business that you can sell, which I think a lot of us, even if we don't want to sell it, there might be a bus with our name on it somewhere. That's just
Mm-hmm.
life. And we
Yeah.
don't know when that bus is coming. And if
Yeah.
you have a business that you can't sell, your spouse or your children aren't going to be able to sell it either. And
Yeah.
so the best thing that we can do for our people is to create a business that can run without us
Yeah.
because and the only way that happens is systems and processes that people can run. And if that bus does find you, they might not even notice for weeks. Like that's a business.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, I mean, I'm more of the proactive approach. So like I want to say a year before I knew I wanted an executive assistant that it was time, I went ahead and created the whole entire process. So I literally interviewed hundreds, literally. That's not even an exaggeration.
I love
Hundreds of
it.
people. Hundreds of people because I was looking for a specific one personality. They had to speak Spanish. That was like
Sure.
there was no way around that because my clientele, they're all bilingual. So I need to have them speak Spanish. And so that was another one. And they had to have a certain, personality, right? Like I didn't want the like rainbows and butterflies effect, but I didn't want like I'm gonna get you effect, right? Like I
Right.
needed a nice little median where they can handle both personalities and then just flip a switch if they needed to. So I finally found someone after literally hundreds of applications and interviews and all the good stuff. And I was like, here you go. I was like, here, we're going to spend a whole week on training you on how I speak, on how I respond to emails, but templates are done. All my links are here. This is how we get paid. This is how, like I just had a whole manual of links and training videos. So just in case, they didn't remember the training or whatever it was, I did little Loom videos and they just click on that. And I was like, I was ready. It took me a whole year to do it, but I did it. So,
I love it.
I know not a lot of people have that, I guess I do it for a living. Obviously, I do it for other people. So the fact that if I didn't do it for myself, that would be scary.
Right.
So, but understand that you may need help. Just ask for help. I mean, simple, I guess simplified our conversation today is just ask for help and you'll find it or it'll find you sometimes, like it did with Robert. Oh my gosh, thanks, Robert. That was an amazing conversation. I literally could talk to you all day. I mean, about everything. I think we both have similar personalities that way, where we can just love hearing ourselves and talk. So, yeah.
Well, and one of the things I hear is we both really enjoy the process
Yes.
of growing and learning and creating. And I think that's one of the most important things about entrepreneurship is the process. It's not the goal's great. I've got the goal. I see the goal. A number of them are right there and they're beautiful goals. I look at those goals less and less as every day passes
Mm.
because it's so much about the process now. And the goals, they look small now.
Mhm.
6 years ago when I put them up there, they looked almost unattainable.
Yeah.
Now they look small. It's like I need new ones, but I love the process so much. And that's when you get into something you enjoy doing. I love coming to my desk. I never know what time it is.
Neither.
It, it's a beautiful feeling. And I had no idea that you could do something like as your life's work and actually enjoy it.
Mind blown. I know, right?
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you to the audience that's listening. And until justice is served, I'll be here. Bye, guys.